important issue I've been trying to deal with for a while. So, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. But to everybody else, we'll give them a couple of minutes for everybody just to come in and pile in and join in some of the stuff, and we'll talk. But yeah, it's because of that issue. That's why you were getting the black screen. And thank you very much. And to everybody else, are we streaming right now? Let me just double check and triple check, because we've been having a lot of technical issues with the last encoder, and then I switched to this encoder, and this encoder as well has problems. Let me see, where is it streaming to? It's streaming to there. Change, okay, fine. I can't change them. Great. All right, everybody's coming online, and and I'm going to have to monitor that, Beth, and deal with the locals issue as it comes. But welcome to your Sunday morning tech support. That's really how it started today. What a nightmare. But we'll get things going. And but most importantly, welcome and good morning. And good morning to the best morning and hopefully the best Sunday of your life. I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure that happens. We'll talk about that and positive energy and a number of issues that are ongoing. And this is the Freedom Coffee live stream, where we work on and celebrate the freedoms that we have, and we work on expanding those freedoms in the future. And how do we do that? One very simple way. We have coffee. And like everybody else in the world, we just talk about how we're going to fix all the world's problems, and then hopefully miraculously that's what happens. So good morning to all of you. And step 2 is the positive mindset. And we're going to focus on that as we're talking about some of this stuff. Good morning, Megan, Beth, Rutan, and Guillaume, and everybody who's coming in. Appreciate you guys being here. Today's theme. We're going to have a theme today. Are you excited? Today's theme is going to be, it takes 1 to 5 years to find out the truth about any political event. I posted a tweet about that a little while ago, and that point I believe it's very accurate and salient, and we're starting to see some of that. We're only we're a year and a half out from the Freedom Convoy, approximately, and already there's just a mountain of information of what was going on behind the scenes during the Freedom Convoy, some of the issues and why some of the issues occurred. And we're going to talk about a few of those things today. But first, a couple of things. First thing, have you ever lost a dog? I have. When I was a kid, we had family dogs. My parents still have family dogs. So a shout out to Cheryl, who won't be here today, who's often here in these streams. She lost her dog, Miss Daisy, who was 17 years old. Imagine 17 years with your dog, who becomes kind of, it's the bond between a dog and a human. It becomes your best friend. It becomes somebody who's understands your emotions. It's that, it's something that goes back to millennial. It's part of the human experience. And I think that's why so many of us are so gutted when we lose man's best friend, that sort of thing. But it's really the epitome of the bond of friendship. On that topic, Tamara Lich did an interview with Jordan Peterson, but friendship. We'll get to that a little bit later. But something else I wanted to ask all of you. Have you noticed that nothing is open anymore? Is it just me? Is everything just closed? Everything just shuts down. Remember, there used to be a time, 2 years ago, before COVID, where things would be open for 24/7, and or they would be opening, before 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock on a Sunday. Like it's really quite crazy the degree that things are closed right now. I don't know. I just I can't be the only one who's noticing that, and like really inconvenient to the point that there's things that you just kind of need to go a reasonable hour because we're all working, and everything is closed all of a sudden. I don't know if you've seen the same thing. Let me know. Justin Trudeau, this is funny. Megan, I lost 2 cats, and just recently in March, my cat's Stewie. Sorry, I'm very sorry about that, Megan. So you understand. Yeah, and I think that pertains not just to dogs, cats as well. In the case of Jessie with her birds as well, like we all get attached to our animals that show us affection. So I get it. Beth says, many businesses are having a hard time finding competent and qualified employees to keep their business open to pre-COVID hours. Well, yeah, there you go. That's what CERB and free money from the government does, I guess, unfortunately. It's funny you mentioned that. There's so many times when I was down in the U.S. after everything was lifted, after there were no more restrictions, and, you go to a Dunkin' Donuts, and there's no, which is where I go. I've done some videos on that. When I'm in the U.S., I go to a Dunkin' Donuts to grab coffee in the morning before my trip back to, hey, Jesse, you're here. Before my trip back to Canada. And many times I saw a sign there saying, sorry, we can only serve people in the drive-thru. And I pulled the manager aside in one of them because there's only 2 people working there, or 3 people working there. And I'm like, I have an 18-wheeler. Like, I don't know if I can fit in your drive-thru. She's like, we just can't get people. She's like, I just don't have employees anymore. It's really weird. So there you go. Rocky heard Ben's voice and perked up. Okay, well, thank you, Rocky. Good morning. And Rocky, I hope you're taking care of Jen. Jess. And anyways, that was just something that I've noticed is everything is shut down, and they're not open the way they were before. So it's kind of frustrating. I can't be the only one. But anyways, so that's just something that I've been observing a lot in the United States. All right, into the politics of what's going on. Some really funny stuff. I'm sure some of you saw Justin Trudeau, our favorite black-faced prime minister, Justin Trudeau, was at the Calgary Stampede in Calgary, Alberta. And for those of you who are from the United States, the Calgary Stampede, it's an event that's held in Calgary. Calgary was largely settled by Texans, so it's very that rural country western culture. That's what the culture is in most of Alberta. And as it is in most of Mexico and most of Latin America, by the way, which people often don't know. So Justin Trudeau was there, and he was asked to help flip some pancakes and cook some pancakes. And wouldn't you know it, the guy is such a fuck up, he can't even flip pancakes. Like, he takes and throws it up, so like he thinks it's a burger. Just goes to show the type of silver spoon that kid has had growing up his entire life. You can tell he has never once ever flipped a pancake or anything. Like, he's never done anything. It was absolutely hysterical. And the first thought that occurred to me is I would feel very worried for whoever set up that stove or hot top and invited him to cook, because they now run the danger of having their bank accounts frozen and being labeled a misogynist and racist and white supremacist and all that stuff. So I'd be very worried. You see how much we become like, I don't know, Venezuela or North Korea, that like you offend the leader, and everybody starts to get worried that, oh, you might have your bank accounts frozen, right? I remember when Justin Trudeau was elected. Oh, what a dark day in history. But their campaign slogan, which was better than our slogan and the Conservatives, because we have nothing but losers running our Digicom. And the hashtag that they were running was hashtag real change. Well, I guess he delivered. We got real change to Canada. So, anyways, it was hysterical. Something else that was interesting that happened as well that popped up on my feed. Oh my God! Holy coffee through the nose. Damn it, Ben. Well, I'm sorry. He was disrespectful, showing up late for and stayed for 5 minutes. Julie. Well, of course, but he's not the only one. All the politicians do that. Yeah, most of them. The ones who aren't good at retail politicians, they just swing by for a photo op, which is, by the way, what Candice Bergen was trying to do to us during the Freedom Convoy on February 4th. You'll notice with me, I'm always going to talk about the things that nobody wants to talk about. All the establishment are trying to hide and bury. I have nothing to hide. I'm not running for seeking office, nor will I ever in my life, so I can be completely honest with all of you, right? But yeah, on February 4th, Candice Bergen contacted us. I remember I was in Tamara's hotel room in the Arc before we shifted over to the Sheridan, and I don't know, I thought it was Tim, but I don't know who. Somebody from the Plane from Hell said, "Oh yeah, Candice Bergen wants to meet with us," and everybody in the room was like, "Oh great, let's meet." And I just, the one who kind of knows how this party works, I'm like, wait, wait, meet where? Where does she want to meet? And they said, oh, she wants to meet at the A&W down the street. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And I said to Tamara, no, you call her back, have them call her back and tell Candice if she wants to come and meet with us, she can come through the back door of the hotel, come up to this hotel room and tell us what she can do for us. Other than that, we don't want to meet with her. So tell her that. And lo and behold, we didn't get a response, right? And that same night, I think it was that night, Candice, there was a late session of Parliament to discuss the truckers, and Candice came out of Parliament, out of the chamber, and there was a media scrum. And what did she say? She said, the Conservative Party's here for you. We love the truckers. We support the truckers. But it's time to go home. And I turned to, there was a couple of them, I think, in my hotel room or wherever we were. I can't remember where we were positioned. But I turned and I said, aha, see? You see? See? What would have happened if Candice made that speech with a bunch of truckers and us standing behind her? Then we would have zero political capital. We would have been screwed. And that should have been, the first, it was a warning, but you didn't really know how it was working, that they're all kind of, the political class was working together to try to end the protest. And so it was, anyways, I don't know how I got onto that tangent, but, there's a lot more always that's going on behind the scenes, as you can tell. Hold on, what's wrong? What's my okay, I don't want to lose locals because I got a few of you in here. And by the way, if you follow on locals, your comments, you can also post memes and pictures and call me bad names, all you want, all that sort of stuff. Will, hey, what's up, brother? How you doing? Vegas never closes. Is that still the case? I hope so. Because New York is definitely not like that now. And Toronto, for sure. Toronto is just a dead city now. So I guess the communists got their wish, right? They put in, it's so infuriating here. You really can't drive in this city. And I'm not being hyperbolic in this case, where half of the streets had 50% of their traffic flow reduced. And now we want, it's not quite like Mexico City, but it's starting to get that feel. If you've ever driven in Mexico City, it is an adventure. And anyways, this was interesting. Everybody's favorite president. Speaking of the 4th of July, Will, this is for you, brother. So we know the Russian-Ukraine money laundering scheme, war, has not been going well for, I guess, anybody, it seems. And Joe Biden was caught on a hot mic. I don't know if it was in the lower house or the Senate, but he was caught on a hot mic. He was walking out, and Joe once again said the quiet part out loud, and he said, "Yeah, we've run out of ammunition." What? What? Is that what you're trying to tell Putin, Joe? And it reminded me right away, and I posted it on Twitter. Remember that quote from leading up to the election from Barack Obama? Never underestimate Joe's ability to fuck up. Well, there you go. So good. Julie says the most dangerous thing in Mexico is the traffic. Was there last week. I'd say it's the second most dangerous. The most dangerous might be the cartels, but you really got to be, like, you're not going to see that in areas like Polanco. But if you go to, the outskirts of Guadalajara and León, Aguascalientes, then, yeah, you'll see sort of that. But I'm going to say it's the number two. It's the number two. But why were you there? Why were you in Mexico City? Mexico is awesome. By the way, if you've never been to Mexico, you got to go. It is, the people are amazing. Not on the resort. The people on the resort are a little bit, they're rude to the Mexicans as well. I remember when I lived there many years ago, my ex-girlfriend, her friends they hated going to the Yucatan, to Cancun and stuff, because they were Mexican and they could speak Mexican Spanish. Everybody who worked in the hotels would automatically assume they couldn't afford to pay. That's just kind of the friction amongst Mexicans in Mexico. But it is but other than that, it is a beautiful place. Guanajuato is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been. It was amazing. Medical. Okay, well, I hope you're okay. I want Mexican things, so when y'all go, let me know. You know what, we should do like a party in Mexico. That would be great. Do like some sort of big event, some freedom event in Mexico. Because despite the fact that AMLO is the president, he's actually been pretty good on freedom. They had some restrictive laws around COVID, but typical Mexicans, they, unlike the Canadians, know that the government's full of crap, so they don't even bother to listen, right? But anyways, it's very refreshing being there. So yeah, Joe said the quiet part out loud, and I guess, does that mean the war's over? Like, they're just hanging out now? Nobody's got any bullets? Like, how do you fight a war without bullets? I would like to know how that works. I've specifically vaccine injured. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Julie. That's I'm very sorry. Well, much like I said, when you talk about vaccine injuries, the theme of today when I started is it takes 1 to 5 years for the truth about any political event to come out. Well, that's an example of it, right? We're, a couple of years after, we're a year after let's say the end of the COVID, or a year and a half after let's say the year and a half after the Freedom Convoy. I think the Freedom Convoy was the end of all the COVID crap. It just, to save face, the political classes in the United States and Canada had to wait enough time so they could say, it had nothing to do with the Freedom Convoy. But the Freedom Convoy really ended all the COVID stuff. So we're, a year away from the end of the Freedom Convoy. And now we see amongst, the legacy outlets, there's at least some movement in starting to acknowledge that there were some issues around I forgot, I'm on YouTube, around the cerveza sickness medicine. Can I even say what it was on YouTube now at this point? I don't know. But Cheryl, how you doing, sweetheart? I started off this morning talking about Daisy May, and all the best to you, and I hope you're well. You're amongst friends here. We all love you, so I will never replace Daisy May, but you can talk about it here. And I hope you don't mind that I posted a picture of Daisy May on Twitter. Anyways, so never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to fuck up. Barack Obama. Who wants to talk about fake news? You want to talk about a little bit about fake news? Vaccine injured. I'm just looking through all your comments here. It's nice. There's no people here with just all capitals, which is great. Everybody here is polite. I'm sure that's going to change eventually, as I'm going to today spark the trolls. And the trolls, many of whom who are funded by the political establishment. So I'm sure they'll start coming in here, and I can't wait. I can't wait. It's so good. It's so good when they get so angry. Okay, the CBC, everyone's favorite fake news. The CBC posted an article this week about the 4 guys that were arrested in Coutts. We'll talk about that in a second. But, the short version is I don't want to get into too much detail because this is a case that is very serious, and I don't want to muddy the waters at all. But there are 4 guys who were arrested for conspiracy, insurrection, white supremacy, having the wrong opinion, and not being gender fluid. I think that's what they were arrested for, is it not? And they've been sitting in jail. Hey, Trish. They've been sitting in jail now for what? Since the convoy? For a year and a half. And I don't know who these people are. I know a lot of people in the community in Alberta know exactly who they are. Everybody's very, very upset and wants some action and doesn't want political prosecutions, which is what they see it as. And, political prosecutions, we seem to be singularly focused in that direction. Well, what about these 4 guys in Coutts? I mean, you had the, and I'm gonna save that for Greg Staley, and I'll explain that in a second. But it was really kind of disturbing. Some of the people who, I don't know, did they set them up in Coutts? I don't know. I have no idea. But that seems to be what everybody claims. But my point here with the CBC posted an article, and the headline, or the headline of the article basically was inferring that the prosecutor, so the Crown Attorney, felt political pressure to prosecute by the Premier's office to prosecute people at the Coutts border. So there was political pressure, right? We were talking about political trials here, right? And having political prisoners. So there's political pressure from the Premier's office put on the prosecutor. That's what the prosecutor is complaining. He's saying, I felt political pressure from the Premier to prosecute this case. Means he was threatened. He was threatened his career if he didn't prosecute it. That's what happens behind the scene. That's how it works. I question, the first thing is, I don't know, how should I approach this? Well, I guess the first question is, who was Premier of Alberta during the Freedom Convoy? Was it Justin Trudeau? Was it Justin Trudeau? Was Justin Trudeau the Premier of Alberta when this prosecutor felt political pressure to charge these guys at the Coutts border? Was that Alberta Premier Justin Trudeau? Somebody help me out who that was. I'm not sure who that was. I think it was the Liberal Party Premier of Alberta, Justin Trudeau. Is that who was prosecuting these people who are, as many people in the community think, political prisoners? Who did that? Because everything I found, I try to search it, and I get everybody screaming about Justin Trudeau and this Liberal Premier, Justin Trudeau. Can somebody explain that to me? I'm confused. I'm confused. All I hear is Trudeau, 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 Trudeau. There's one guy here, the pain in the ass, who keeps talking about how Doug Ford enacted the EMA 2 days before Trudeau. But nobody wants to talk about that for some reason. And then you have this Liberal Premier, Justin Trudeau, who was putting political pressure on the prosecutor. What's going on? Justin Trudeau's everywhere. How does this work? Oh, wait. I'm wrong. According to Beth here on Locals, thank you, Beth. This is what I love about this. When I don't know the answer to stuff, I can ask you guys, and we can all help each other, and you can better inform me. Thank you, Beth. Beth says, no, it was the Conservative Premier, Jason Kenney. The Conservative Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, was the one who put political pressure on the prosecutor to prosecute the 4 people at the Coutts border. But we got to scream about Trudeau all the time. We're not allowed to do that. We have to just brainwash people. Trudeau, 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 Trudeau. It can't be. It can't be a Conservative that did that. Wait, huh? I don't understand. It's just really frustrating. But anyways, this is my non-partisan political stuff. Is I'm trying to show that I just like truth. I don't like games, and this is a game that they're playing, and it's really frustrating. And so that's the first thing that's frustrating. The second thing is, as some of you know, I produce a podcast called Not on Record with criminal lawyer Joseph Newberger, who's a very well-respected criminal lawyer in Toronto, and Diana Davison, who's a very well-known, she was a very well-known men's rights activist who has become a legal researcher and works with Joe together. And so I'm around these criminal cases all the time and talking to them and learning about them and all that sort of stuff. And what's really frustrating is, so these guys who felt political pressure from liberal Alberta Premier Justin Trudeau, or Jason Kenney, I don't know, I'm still confused. There was political pressure to arrest these guys, and I guess they've been denied bail. They're not allowed. They're guilty of conspiracy, insurrection, white supremacy, anti-gender fluid, and having the wrong opinions. That's what they're guilty of. And they've been in jail for now, a year and a half, yet gangbangers and violent criminals who are actually using guns to shoot people, they're actually using them, they get off and frequently get bail within 24 hours. So you have the guys who we think people claim that they were framed. And I do remember we dealt with the Freedom Convoy. They were trying to send a truck to set up full of weapon or something like that. I don't remember the details. I have it in all my notes. But we were being set up and we dealt with it really quickly. And I guess the same thing in Coots happened, but they weren't prepared for it. And the claim is that there were guns that were planted or something. I don't know the details, and again, I don't want to muddy the waters for the case. But it seems to be the best way to do it. The best way to ensure you don't get politically targeted in Canada is join a gang. I suggest the Crips or the Bloods. I don't know if we have MS-13 here yet or not, but just join a gang. Start engaging in extortion and drug distribution in your community. And then when you shoot somebody, you're going to be out within 24 hours. You're going to be fine. Don't worry. We'll take care of you. I think that's the way we avoid political prosecution in Canada, right? Ward, hey BJ, how goes, brother? Hey, how you doing, man? It's good to see you too. My life has been so crazy the past month, speaking at different events, and I'm finally going to try to get back into this stuff because there's a lot of stuff going on. Thanks for coming, brother. I appreciate it. So yeah, there you go. I think that's how we can avoid political prosecution in Canada. Just join a gang, get involved in narcotics distribution, and when you're caught with a gun, actually shoot somebody, and then you won't be prosecuted, right? Yeah, Jesse, good point. Not just the guns. Look at the guy in the TTC that stabbed another guy. Yeah, I think he was a white supremacist, right? Right? White supremacist. Clown world. Whatever you do, the rule of Canada is do not trust your lying eyes. No matter what you do. Whatever you see, you're not seeing. Wasn't that the policy of in the USSR? I don't know. Pretty much. Miss Cheryl, you're making a laugh. Get me in a gang. Well, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should all join gangs. What do you think is better, the club, the Bloods, or the Crips? I don't know. I'm thinking more MS-13 because I want to work on my Spanish, and the best way to work on Spanish is to use it every day. So maybe if I can just join the Latino gangs that are operating now in Canada because they're helping the narco-trafficos come into Vancouver and distribute fentanyl across Canada, maybe I can just join them to practice my Spanish, right? Let's all do that. All right. Listen, the only way to enjoy Clown World is laugh at it, right? And at least the good part is people are starting to wake up slowly, right? All right, so the next topic on today's theme, and the theme is, just to remind you, it takes 1 to 5 years to find out the truth about any political event, right? There was an interview. There was an interview with Jordan Peterson and Tamara Lich. Beth says new FC. Oh, Beth puts up new FC gang, Freedom Convoy gang, full of truckers, ranchers, and farmers. Let's not encourage them, please. It's like when I spoke at the Bitcoin conference, and Foss and Lepard, they did this, the funniest, the best presentation on fiscal policy and what's happened to the devaluation of the dollar and all that sort of stuff. But it was really entertaining. It was funny how they did it. And at the end, they put, we got to fight for freedom and the truckers, and they have, they put my face up, and they're like, BJ's Canada's William Wallace. And just because of the amount of communication and organization and stuff that I was trying to help with to keep everybody peaceful, and I was the Bitcoiner. I was the only one who understood Bitcoin there, right? And so they're like, William Wallace. And I'm like, oh, I love you guys. You're so great. So I come up to the podium, and I'm like, guys, I love you, and I can't thank you enough, but let's not encourage the government. It didn't work out all that well for William Wallace. I want us all to focus on being peaceful and getting over this hump and getting us all our freedoms back and get the extremists who are involved in politics out of office, get reasonable, boring people back in, to get regular corrupt liberals again, get regular corrupt conservatives again who aren't going to, become demagogues, and just focus on the betterment of Canada. So let's not encourage them, right? So Jordan Peterson had an interview with Tamara. Now, I got to preface this by saying I haven't watched any of Tamara's interviews. Didn't even watch her POAC testimony. There's some reasons for that, but my own sanity is part of that. But anyways, I haven't watched any of that stuff. But I've had a number of people send me information, tell me what's going on, send me pages from, she has a book that came out, send me some pages from the book saying, hey, wait a minute, what about this? I'm like, I don't know where they came to that conclusion, but whatever. I guess it's all subjective, right? And so I'm aware of what's been going on, and I gave her credit that during her testimony, the only thing I saw was in the very beginning. She rightfully was truthful when she said, I gave Benjamin the login to my Twitter. He's really good at Twitter, and I was. So if you liked Tamara Lich's Twitter account during the convoy, that was me. And so it was great, it was, fine. But so I've seen a lot of things, and I'm just really perplexed with some of the interpretations of events. But again, I don't get into it. You know why? We know that there's certain pressures, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and which I kind of inferred in my POEC testimony. And but anyways, I was sent one part of the interview with Jordan that I watched, and it was just a short little segment, and because somebody just brought it up to my attention and said, "Can you believe this? Watch this now. You have to watch it." I'm like, all right, fine, I'll watch it. I'll watch this one little part, and it was confusing. Not entirely confusing, because I think I understand the motivations and why some of this stuff is going on in terms of protecting the narrative. So there was a part, I think it's 51 minutes in, if I'm not mistaken, and Jordan asks Tamara a direct question. And he said, quote, I'm going to read this, okay? Quote, so let's go back to when you were envisioning the convoy. How did it actually start to come about? Okay? Which is interesting, because prior to doing the research for my book, I didn't really know. It was always a little bit vague, and but I was just asked to come in and help with messaging and whatever. Fine. Ended up, unfortunately, doing a lot more than that. But anyways. So he says, so let's go back to when you were envisioning the convoy. How did it actually start to come about? And then Tamara responds, miraculously. So we started. I got the Facebook page going, got the GoFundMe going, and then we had road captains from every province. What those were truckers normally, like northern Saskatchewan, northern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan, and they organized their friends and truckers to come, and we would just meet along the highway. Did you see it? You didn't. This is a good example of that phrase that I love. Your ears didn't see it, or hear it, but your brain did. Or if you're watching it, your eyes didn't see it, but your brain did. Let me do it again. Let me do this again for you and see if you can catch it. All right, so Jordan asks, so let's go back to when you were envisioning the convoy. How did it actually start to come about? And she responds, miraculously, nervous laugh, change topic. So we started. I got the Facebook page going and got the GoFundMe going, and then we had road captains from every province. What those were truckers normally, like northern Saskatchewan, northern Alberta, southern Alberta. And then they organized their friends and truckers to come, and we would just meet along the highway. The most important part is in the beginning. Last time. So let's go back to when you were envisioning the convoy. How did it actually start to come about? Miraculously. Change topic. So we started. I got the Facebook page going. He didn't ask about the Facebook page. He asked about how the convoy started. And one of the things that was very interesting is putting that together when John was helping me with the research for the book and put it together. Now, I'll get back to that in a second. Last time, miraculously, change topic. So we started. I got the Facebook going and blah, 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 blah. I've talked many times on this stream about the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, right? You know a trick for bullshit detection? A very, very good trick for that is when you see vague answers to questions that require a very specific and direct response. Who was there? Where were they? How did it start? Who was communicating, right? Those are the things that should be answered. But the response was miraculously, and then changed the topic. Now, I don't know that she's being advised. Well, I know she's being advised. She's not being more than being advised. She's being told exactly what she can and cannot say. That's why myself and others who were on the board told them to go screw themselves, so they conspired to kick us off the board because we wouldn't play their game of political BS, right? And I've talked about that many times before. And which is why, inevitably there were smears against all of us and whatever, right? So the response that Jordan got was miraculously. Now, alternatively, there is another explanation for this, okay? So let's park that response there. How did you start to vision the convoy? Miraculously, Facebook page. We had a Facebook page. She said, she said we had one, right? Is that what she said? She said, so we started, I got the Facebook page going. Okay, fine. So she created a Facebook page. Alternatively, the side that I've seen repeated consistently all over the place was Bridget started on TikTok talking about a convoy because of her experience at the border. And listen, Bridget, I love you. And we both know Bridget's not afraid of friction. And sometimes when it's not even necessary. But, that truckers are like that. That's just a very trucker trait, right? So she, because of her experience at the border, and she told the story of the subway where she just delivered to Subway and they wouldn't let her use the washroom because of COVID. And that was embarrassing and humiliating. So she went on TikTok and started tweeting Convoy 22, or however she worded it. We need to start a convoy. We need to start a convoy. She was doing videos all over TikTok. Simultaneously, Colin was beginning a similar convoy in BC. And when Bridget was reaching out to people, she got in touch. She was connected to, this is how I understand it. She was connected to a number of other people online, including Chris Barber, and Colin was dealing with his group of people, and they eventually found each other. And it was murky, but because there so many people getting on all at once, and they started to figure out how to corroborate. And in the case of Bridget, she said, I had people in four provinces, because she's in Ontario, Colin's in BC, but they didn't have anybody for Quebec and the Maritimes. And I can't remember, Bridget will tell this story, I'm sure. But then there were other people who went and got the Maritimes and Quebec on board and whatever. Okay, well that sounds at least like answering the question. How did you envision the convoy? Well, I was humiliated at the border, and then when I crossed the border, I went to a Subway. They wouldn't let me use the washroom. I had enough. I got on TikTok, and I just started hashtagging Convoy 2022 and mandates or whatever it was, or end stop COVID and blah, blah, blah. And I connected with other truckers, and then we decided this is a good idea. And I think they had 11 truckers putting the convoy together before Tamara got involved. And then after Tamara got involved, she called me a day or so after. So she got involved, apparently reached out to them and told them she was involved in the 2019 convoy, which has some red flags about it as well. And set up a GoFundMe page and set up a Facebook page attributed to her name. And then she called me and said, yeah, me and a bunch of people, it was vague, again, no specificity, have set up a convoy. And okay, fine, I agree. I'm on board. I'm against all this nonsense. We've been friends for years. You got it. I'm there to help. I'm interested in this. So I don't know. Do you see the contrast? Can you see the difference? Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people right now getting very angry at me who are going to see this in the future. And they're going to say, a lot of bad things about me, like they always do. Why? Because you can't listen to me. You can't. You're not allowed to, because you need to absorb and be brainwashed with a political narrative. Everybody needs to get on board with a political narrative. Now, I didn't go to Ottawa for politics. I went to Ottawa because I was forced to get vaccinated, or my carrier would not have allowed me to drive across the border. I had truck payments. I had expenses. Like, I couldn't afford to do that. It's just the way it is. And, I was like most of us, coerced. Did I know the vaccine was good or bad? I don't know. I still don't know. I don't believe any of the data. I still don't believe any of it. But I don't like being forced, and I don't like the data tracking. And that, for me, I've said in many interviews, for me, that was the real big one, which was the ArriveCan data tracking app. Maybe because I'm more of a techie and I understand data tracking and what it could lead to, right? That's why I was there. And I think what we're starting to see is this bifurcation. And people are starting to see it in real time. There was a freedom convoy, and then there was the political convoy. And I guess the political convoy thought that I was a political partisan. No, I care about truth. I was there for truth, freedom, mandates, and all that stuff, and to do my very best to ensure that everybody was peaceful, that we maintained a collective aura that was peaceful and did not have anxiety. I told this to Jordan Peterson on the phone the first time he called me, which I guess it was after the first weekend. And I had been in communication with him prior on something with Stephen Hicks. And I had met him once before. So he called and reached out, and we got connected to each other. And he said, he basically said in a very polished language, what are you doing? Like, how are you going to do this? What are you thinking? And I said, listen, I know how truckers are. I have, I came from the corporate world and went towards trucking because I got sick of the woke bullshit. But I know I have many friends now who've been trucking for many, many years. I have brothers in trucking, whatever. And I know how they are. They don't take shit. They're very independent. Don't tell them what to do or that's going to blow up in your face. And I said, I said I've done media stuff before. I've run large staff of people in a previous company. And I know that mood and behavior, I didn't use that term, but I was getting to that. Mood and behavior is going to be everything. And if I can help everybody focus on a positive mood, positive behavior, positive messaging, then we're all going to be less susceptible to be shifting over into anxiety, right? And if we don't shift over, and that's where stress comes from. You start to get anxious, you get stressed, and then, well, there you have, that's how you could lead to violence. So my goal was to focus everybody to buy into the narrative of peace, love, unity, and freedom. Make it family friendly, make it non-aggressive, not adversarial towards the government. Keep it within that sphere. That's what I was trying to do. And I said to them specifically, when I was a kid, I used to go to Grateful Dead concerts, Fish concerts, Bob Dylan, like that sort of stuff. And it was always that sort of positive experience. And I knew, especially if you go to a Grateful Dead concert, wow, what an experience. I knew if I could get that sort of positive, loving vibe in Ottawa, something that is similar to Woodstock, like that sort of thing, then I knew we would be less likely to shift into anxiety and we wouldn't have any violence. I said that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to focus on just that, keeping everybody calm, happy, and enjoy the experience, right? And while I was doing that, there were certain political people trying to fan the flames on the other side, both in the Liberals and the Conservatives as well, behind the scenes, who were trying to send us talking points. They sent me talking points. Well, you should communicate that you're frustrated. The truckers are frustrated because of inflation. I'm like, yeah, thanks, Russ. No thanks. No thanks, buddy. I think we got it taken care of at this point, right? Now, I'm sure there's going to be many people who are going to watch this and you get angry at me because because I've just explained this inaccurate communication between Jordan and Tamara. But you shouldn't, and this is why. Look, I'm very empathetic, and I understand the difficulty of the situation. There are some people who made a deal with the devil, and now they're trapped. I wouldn't make that deal with the devil. That's why I was thrown out, and I got a bunch of feds calling me a fed, and he's a bad guy. You can't trust him. Whatever the smear is of the day, right? It's always a different smear, right? That's how you know it's inaccurate. They do the exact same thing as Justin Trudeau, except their basket of smear words is just different, right? But it's the exact same tactic. This is not unique to the left. This is unique to the political class. They all do this. But I inferred in my POEC testimony that a lot of people didn't understand my testimony, and it's not your fault because I wasn't there playing to an audience. I treated it like a legal proceeding. And in a legal proceeding, it's very different. It's not American law. That's a whole long conversation. Again, working on Not on Record with Joseph Newberger and Diana Davidson and growing up around lawyers, I'm maybe a little bit more aware of kind of how the legal system works. But I inferred in the POEC testimony, and I had to do this because I didn't have standing. I couldn't get up there and do a vlog and just talk about what I want. I had to fit within the constraints of questions being asked by 20 parties that were all hostile towards me. You saw even the Miller guy was hostile towards me because I'm not reinforcing a false political narrative, right? So I inferred in that testimony that neither Tamara nor Chris are credible witnesses. Now, this is when people go crazy and they yell at me, and you shouldn't. That's a defense of them because they're trapped. They have no choice. So many of us, and you can follow up with the others, with Chris Guerra, with Chad Eros, with Bridget, with everybody else who was around there, that now that we were all threatened indirectly, sometimes directly, that if you don't toe the lines, this is by the people around the JCCF and Carpe and the emails from Carpe, those are going to haunt him. But we were told specifically, if you don't do what we say, then we're going to abandon you, and then you have no legal recourse. You'll have no legal defense. And in the case of Tamara and Chris, they're even more susceptible to this pressure because they have criminal charges. So that week after they got arrested, everybody's like, oh, I've answered this in a bunch of spaces. Why didn't Dichter get arrested? Because Dichter went off and got his own real lawyer, Joseph Newberger. And I called Joseph, and I'm like, okay, I got these clowns as lawyers in Ottawa who are screwing with us. I can tell. I just don't know. I haven't put the pieces yet. Two of us have been arrested. Tamara's just arrested. Caribou. Anyway, I don't want to get into too much detail because we're going to have a proceeding. But I got on the phone with him, and I said, I need a criminal lawyer that's not part of this political game. So he got me on the phone with Chris, and we spent, and all week I was on the phone and trying to ensure that there weren't any, because there was the potential for a warrant, but it never materialized. And it never materialized, I think, because I got a real lawyer to call them and say, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing there at the OPP? What do you think? And that was it, right? And I think that's when the government just decided to back off, because how they thought it would play in their favor didn't play in their favor, as it didn't in the Senate, as we saw. But anyways, my point is that both Tamara and Chris are trapped. They are controlled. They have to say what they're told to say. And I empathize with that. I understand how difficult that situation's, irrespective of disagreements that we might have. When Chris Barber gets on TikTok and starts calling me names and stuff, he doesn't care. He doesn't know me. I barely know him. We spoke 3 or 4 times in the convoy. We were cordial. We got along great. We actually got along really well. I didn't have any friction with Chris Barber at all. But now that he's trapped and controlled by the political apparatus, when I say something, he's told to go out and, talk about Dichter. Not quite explicitly, I'm sure, but that's what's going on here. They're all trapped. And anybody you see who's platforming this this narrative is not being told the truth. Some people might be controlled by the same sort of apparatus. I don't know. We'll find out over time. But that is to say that Greg Staley from Diverge Media, you got to check it out. Greg has been working now for 8 or 9 months on everything that's been going on behind the scenes. Emails, he's interviewed a bunch of them, he's reached out to a bunch of them. He's trying to do real journalism. I don't think he's going to throw me under the bus. I mean, everybody questions decisions that we make. And in the fog of war, you do the best you can. Did I make all the best, perfect decisions? I don't know. I think it was pretty good. But, I'm sure we all make mistakes. But he's done a very, very deep dive into this. Check out Diverge Media. I think the domain is divergemedia.com. He's got a piece called, that was like the overarching umbrella piece, and he's done a bunch of ones since, called Was the Freedom of Convoy Compromised? Check it out. It's definitely worth a read. And it'll be very interesting to see what conclusions he's come to since writing that piece and the subsequent follow-up pieces when he releases his documentary, which I think is going to be, I'm going to say August or September, but I'm not entirely sure. You can reach out to Greg on Twitter or on Facebook, or send him an email for his website. The guy's working really hard. Small independent journalist. He's got 4 kids at home, works a blue-collar job, but all he cares about is the truth, and he doesn't want Canadians to be lied to, and he doesn't have loyalty to political parties, no matter who they are. His loyalty is just to the truth, right? So Oh, I just realized there's another screen of comments that I have. I'm wondering, why are the comments not moving? And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, wrong thing. Cheryl, we will always have your back, man. Cheryl, thank you so much. You know, you're like the Bitcoin people. The Bitcoin people are awesome too, because they too are not politically partisan. They don't have blind faith in politicians, and they would just want to focus on truth. And I think that's what's going to, but it's going to take years. We're already a year and a half in. Let's see what happens with Greg's documentary. I do hope that Tamara and Chris Barber are successful and they are not made an example of. I don't think they will be. And but you know, there's a bunch of other concerns. I don't really want to get into that. I want to focus on all the positivity. But I just wanted to clarify some of the stuff, because I don't think a narrative that I understand certain things can be subjective experiences, but then there's sometimes that things are just they're just factually incorrect. And you know, I've seen a lot of people hurt by this political class, this political the group of, you know, political operatives, and I don't like when people get screwed. You know, I really don't. I feel bad for them. That's why I worked so hard for many months to help people with representation. I'm also helping somebody else figure out his stuff right now, quietly behind the scenes, and because I don't want people to be left with a bad taste in their mouth as a result of the Freedom Convoy. And remember, and this is the positive part, anytime around the world that something like this that is global in nature, the political establishment of that country is going to try to intervene and co-opt it and take it over. That's not unique to Canada or the Freedom Convoy. Now, that happens all over the world. The Dutch protesters were dealing with the same thing, but they saw what we went through, and they prepared ahead of time and were aware of what could happen. But all of that, all of this does not take away from the amazing moment that was. And that, in my mind, that's what put an end to all the COVID nonsense, right? That was the line in the sand for governments around the world. Because remember, we had convoys that started up in between 30 and 40 other countries that were supporting us. My email and Twitter inbox, I was getting somewhere around 10,000. At one point, I got 10,000 messages in an hour. Like, oh my God, what do I do? So, you know, frantically trying to filter and all that stuff. And I was getting so many requests from media sources around the world: ABC, BBC, I-24, DW, the Japanese one, I can't remember the name of it. There were so many of them. Anyways, I mean, what I'm sharing with you is just a tiny fraction. There is so much more that's gone on behind the scenes, but you also don't want to be a fire hose to people. And you know, it's when you're involved in it, it's easy. Like Bridget knows, it's really easy because we were there and we can communicate. The most frustrating part is when we try to tell people what we went through, and they're like, "Oh, but I saw on True North that this happened." Like, excuse me, they're talking about me. I was there. Oh, Bridget, that's very nice. Bridget says, BJ has been a light in a dark place. Well, we're not going to get through all of this stuff if we allow the negativity to get a hold of us, and we also allow people to go without prosecution, without representation to defend themselves. I don't want, it's like they say in the military, you never leave a soldier behind. I feel that way about the convoy. And there's lots of people, there's people who suffer from cognitive dissonance. No matter what I say, they're just going to buy into the narrative, and they're going to go online, and they're just going to say bad things about me no matter what. I know that. I don't really care. But there are a percentage of people that are willing to change, that are able to change their minds. They're able to understand that, maybe I'm just suffering narrative poisoning, which is what you've all been subjected to for the past year and a half. And maybe I can overcome this narrative poisoning by listening to the other perspectives and, maybe they're actually filling in the gaps and answering some questions. That's what that book is behind me, Honking for Freedom. That's why I wrote the book, to fill in a bunch of the gaps for everybody, so everybody has an understanding of what Bridget and I and Tamara and Chris and everybody else we're dealing with behind the scenes. That's why I put all the positive stories. There's a little kernel that kind of will hopefully let people understand what was going on the political side with the lawyers and stuff, but the rest of it, that's all the positive stories, and it's written so all of you can share it with your liberal friends and family, and hopefully maybe wake some of them up to understand the importance of freedom and respect for one another. All right, I'm at 59 minutes here, so I'm going to run out. I'm going to shut this down, continue on locals for a couple of minutes because Beth has got some questions, or anybody else who has some questions. And I hope that helps answer some questions. Check out Diverge Media, Greg Staley, divergemedia.com. Obviously, the nationaltelegraph.com as well has been doing some very, very good work. And I'll try to be here again, I don't know, tomorrow. So if you have any follow-up questions, let me know tomorrow. And Bridget, thank you for that. BJ has been a light in a dark place. I don't know. I'm just trying to do my best. Have an awesome